In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the project and pull commands. So curve, arc, start, and direction. I'm going to start from 0 and press enter. The end of the arc, I'm going to come down below here, front view, and click, and hold shift, and click again. I can now revolve this surface. So surface, revolve, select the curve to revolve, and right click. And now the rotation axis, the start is 0, and press enter. And the end, I'm going to hold shift and either come up or down, and left click, and choose full circle. I'll shade this in, so now you can see there's my revolve surface. Under the solid menu is text. And I'm just going to leave the default text in here. Make sure we have curve on, and I'll set the height to 6 millimeters and click OK. And now disable my snap and go ahead and click and put those curves right there. I'm going to raise them up a little bit just so you can see a little easier here and step on to the next layer. So if I wanted to put these curves onto this surface, the project command is going to essentially do a vertical projection of these curves onto this surface. Essentially, what it's doing is taking these curves and extruding them, and then using the intersection command of these surfaces and producing a result like this. Now it'll do it in less steps. So I'll show you the project now. Curve, curve from objects, and project. Select the curves and points to project. Select these curves and right click. And the surface to project onto is this surface here. I'll right click. And now you can see that Rahino has been projected onto this surface. The projection direction is always perpendicular to the construction plane. So if I click undo, if we were to do this in the front view, this whole setup would have to be rotated 90 degrees to get the same result. So now project would work in the front view. Project. Select the curves. I don't want this edge here. Right click and the surface. Enter. And now you can see Rahino projects. So it's viewport dependent. So make sure you're in the correct viewport to get the result that you're looking for. Click undo a couple times. And the other command is pull. Now pull works a little bit different. Project always projects in a parallel fashion, whereas pull will look at the normals. So if I turn on the direction on this surface, I'm going to flip this so you can see. So pull is going to pull back based on the curvature of the surface, so the normals on this surface. So essentially, when this pulls in, it's going to pull in at a taper like this. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate. Curve, curve from objects, pull back, curves to pull are here, and right click, and the surface, and enter. So you can see here, now it's pulled these curves back onto the surface, and they've shrunk back because of the curvature of the surface. Also notice if I pull these curves down closer to the surface, and I use the pull command, it ends up being slightly wider. So you can see this lies outside of here, whereas if I back up and do this again when it's higher, it lies inside of that ISO curve. So the distance from the object will affect how it's pulled back. So you want to try and keep your curve somewhat close to the object when you're doing the pullback command. And why you would use pull as opposed to project is when the object really has a strong curvature to it, or you're looking for a different result. Another thing that you can see with the curvature of the object, this is all facing outwards. So we have a convex surface. If I flip this over, so I'm going to rotate this from 0, using Shift and click, flip it and hold Shift and click again, drag this down a little bit. And now you'll see that the normals on this surface all going this direction. So it's actually going to pull this and taper it outwards. So if I select these curves and do the pull command, click this surface and enter, you can see Rahino actually gets stretched outwards because of the curvature of the surface. This helps too when the surface has a large curvature to it. So let's say we have something like this, and I'm going to take a couple of these letters here and rotate them down, rotate these down, just bring them in position a little bit here, rotate the R, slide them back together. So now if we did project with a surface extruded from here, I'm going to have a difficult time. I'm going to use the both sides option, getting the results that we're looking for. So project, curve, curve from object, project, select the curves, right click, and the surface. And I'm in the perspective view, so it's going to go and extrude these or project them normal to the construction plane of my active viewport. Right click. You can see it gets pulled down, and the R and the O project straight through, and I've got a little distortion here, and they're hanging off the edge because the R overhangs and the O overhangs. And the inside the O, because this undercuts, actually comes back and intersects a second time. So it creates a real mess here. But pullback would work in this scenario. Don't want that edge. Just use Control and click to deselect that. Enter, and the surface, enter. And you can see that now this pulls back onto the surface. I'm going to hide this, turn off the black. So now I have a nice curved Rahino, and it fits on the surface. So that's how the project and pull commands work, and that's going to conclude this lesson.